Hello and welcome, everybody. Today, I want to share a story about an experience that happened about 6 or 7 years ago. And it took place during a period of my life when I was devoting perhaps an excessive amount of time to introspection and meditation and emotional excavation. And one day during this time, I was meditating. I was just sitting quietly by myself, focusing on my breath, paying attention to my feelings. And there's this part of me that I suddenly felt. And it was like a voice and a feeling, and it sounded and felt like a 5-year-old version of me. And this 5-year-old version of me was very sad. He was extremely disappointed, and it was a really, really strong feeling. And so instead of trying to push it out of my awareness, I decided to be with it and to pay attention to it and to explore it and start asking some questions. So I felt this sad 5-year-old part of me, and I just started exploring it. And pretty soon, there was this story that kind of emerged. And part of the story was that my 5-year-old self was extremely sad because he'd lost his wallet. And he lost all of the money that he had saved up and put in this wallet. And suddenly, when this came into my awareness, I remembered a trip that I had taken with my family, probably when I was around 5 years old. And we lived in a rural area, and this trip we took was to the city, to Vancouver, where I actually live now at this point in my life. And we traveled to Vancouver to stay with my aunt and uncle in their big fancy new house. And on the trip, I brought a little wallet with me. And in that little wallet was all of the money that I had saved up until that point in my life, my 5-year-old life. And the money had come probably from doing chores, maybe a gift from an uncle or a grandparent of $10 here or there. And altogether, it was about $50, if my memory serves me correctly. And this was a long time ago, so it's very approximate. But I think it was around $40 or $50. And it felt like a fortune to me at that time. And it's money that I could have went to the general store and bought candy with, or squandered in some way, but I had kind of stewarded this wealth. And it was extremely exciting to bring it to the city with all of the cool malls where I could get cool toys or whatever. And I was very excited. But on the first or second morning of our trip there, I went to get my wallet out of the bag that I had all my clothes in, and it wasn't there. And I panicked, and I started searching all over the room where I was staying, and I couldn't find it. And I started searching everywhere in the basement of the house where we were and all around, and I started asking people, and nobody knew where it was. And eventually, to make a long story short, I gave up. I never found the wallet. It wasn't anywhere. I searched again and again, all the same places, and I couldn't find it. And I was very sad. And I don't remember clearly, but I'm sure I talked to my parents about it, and I think they just said, well, you got to be careful with your stuff. And they were probably so overwhelmed with traveling to the city with 3 young children and all of the stresses of family drama and all of that, that I don't think my personal tragedy was very apparent at the time. And, that's life. It happened. And yet here I was many years later, sitting quietly by myself, and there was this 5-year-old voice in me who hadn't let it go. He was still sad. And I thought that was fascinating. And I kind of just listened and tried to have compassion for this part of myself, and that was that. But then the next time I sat down to meditate, that voice showed up again, and he was still sad about the exact same thing. So I was patient and I was understanding. But the voice wouldn't go away. It just kept on coming up, and it had the same. He was still hanging on to this experience. And I realized at some point that he was waiting for someone to help him, to kind of make this unfair thing right. And yeah, I guess it was just a very impactful experience. You know, early experiences with money can leave a deep imprint, probably. And I wondered, as this memory was coming up, I wondered, man, I wonder if this kind of senseless loss of money and then the emotional reaction that I had to it as a child, I wonder if that like kind of shaped my relationship with money as an adult. Because as an adult, I opted out of the modern economy for many years. I went and lived in the woods in cabins that I built with friends, and lived like a life of extreme minimalism. And now, even though I live in a city, I'm still very much a minimalist. And I couldn't help but wonder, I wonder if that formative experience shaped my relationship with money. And again, that voice just kept on coming up for, I think, probably weeks, until one day it came up again during a period of meditation. And I had this eureka moment. All of a sudden, I realized, wait a minute, this 5-year-old part of me can't let go of this because he's waiting for someone to take care of him. And I'm completely capable of taking care of him. And all I've been doing is just sitting here and listening and nodding my head. And at that moment, I jumped up to my feet, I threw my jacket on, and I headed out the door to go to the nearest mall. I hopped on my bike and I rode downhill to the mall, which was only like a 10-minute ride away. And I remember it was like the meditation didn't really end. Like I kept that 5-year-old part of me in my awareness as I went to the mall. And when I got to the mall, I went straight to a store that I knew had wallets. And I started looking for wallets. But I say we because, again, this 5-year-old part of me was like, this was a chance for him to get his wallet back. So I went into the store, and then I deliberately kind of asked that place in me, which of these wallets do you think looks coolest? And he had a very clear choice on which wallet was coolest. It was almost like a card holder more than a wallet. It was a very small, sleek, elegant little piece. And I actually had barely any money to my name at this during this part of my life. But I had enough to buy that wallet. And then once I had it, I went to the nearest ATM and I took $50 out, which at that time was a significant part of my net worth, probably. And I put $50 into the little wallet. And the lost wallet and the lost fortune was restored. And that 5-year-old part of me that had been so sad and dejected for weeks leading up to this, and maybe for even longer, like subconsciously, he was really excited. There was just this feeling of joy and love that I had felt. This part of me was so innocent, and I had the common sense idea to just be responsible for it. Just take care of him. Do something for him. He lost a wallet. He lost money. It was an opportunity to show that part of me that these are material things. And yes, it hurts to lose them, but they are replaceable because they're material things. And so I was able to kind of, I guess, deliver as an adult, I was able to just kind of like validate that part of me in its confusion and just say, hey, it's okay that we lose money sometimes or that we lose possessions sometimes, because we can get them back. Might take a little time, it might take some hard work, but here's a wallet and here's $50. just as a symbol of the lesson that we're learning together. And yeah, it was an experience that really left this residual glow in me for a while afterwards. And it's something that in various different forms I've repeated many times in the years since. Even recently, I had kind of a disappointment with a friend, and I was able to do something similar by just like feeling that sad child in me, essentially, and just taking responsibility and being like, look, I got this. I can take care of you. I can. And there's something so powerful about, for me, that experience was really powerful because instead of just saying, I care about you, I hear you, I actually did something tangible. And I think there are times when that would be inappropriate or foolish. But in this case, it was such a small gesture materially, and it was more about what it meant under the surface than the material thing being replaced. But that's sacred too. There was something sacred and beautiful about it. Anyhow, it was a really beautiful experience, and like I said, I've had the opportunity and the privilege to repeat it in different ways in the years since. And yeah, I just wanted to share that story with you. I wrote about it in one of my books. Yeah, and I made a TikTok about it recently that got like 500,000 views and so many beautiful comments from strangers who had their own experiences that were similar to losing the wallet. And they were like, man, I'm inspired now to go do something for that part of me. And yeah, I just think it's such an empowering thing. And it has been so empowering for me to learn that part of growing into a strong person can sometimes involve listening to the most vulnerable parts of me, taking responsibility for them, and loving them and caring for them. And when I do that, it's not an act of emotional indulgence, because I come out on the other side with a cup that is fuller when I go into the world. Just, I've noticed that when I do those little things here and there, it doesn't have to be much. There's a lot of mileage for me that can come out of one of those gestures of self-love. It can make me a lot more supportive of a presence in the broader community. I just have more love to give because there's these it's like this circuitry of love within me is being balanced or connected or something. Anyhow, if you enjoyed this, there's many ways you can let me know. You can like this. You can subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You can comment below if you're watching on YouTube. And if you are interested in checking out my books, they are collections of autobiographical stories about love and loss and finding inner power and all the juicy stuff that involves. You will find links to those in the show notes or in the description. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. And until next time, take care.